Liam had always been known as the kid who liked to act tough, even when there was no real reason to do so. At school, he walked through the hallways with a loud voice and a confident smile that made him feel important. He liked attention, and he liked it even more when people looked at him with surprise or curiosity. Sometimes he joked too much. Sometimes he pushed limits. And sometimes he tried too hard to impress others. His teachers had talked to him many times about being kinder and more thoughtful, but Liam usually laughed it off. He felt that nothing serious would ever happen to him because, in his mind, he was always in control. So, when his school announced a trip to London, Liam was excited not because of the museums or the history lessons, but because he thought it would be fun to show off in front of his classmates. Most of them had never traveled outside their town, and Liam believed this trip would give him another chance to be the center of attention. The idea of visiting Buckingham Palace especially fascinated him. He had seen videos online of the royal guards standing still for long periods of time, and he had heard stories about how they never moved, no matter what people said or did. To Liam, this sounded unbelievable, and even a little funny. On the morning of the trip, everyone gathered in front of the school. Students were carrying backpacks, water bottles, and cameras. Teachers were checking attendance, reminding students to stay close, and repeating the same rules over and over again. Liam arrived with a big smile and told everyone he was ready for a real adventure. The other students rolled their eyes, but some of them laughed. They were used to Liam's big personality. The bus ride to London took several hours, and during that time, many students played games, listened to music, or looked out the window at the passing scenery. Liam, however, used the ride to talk about the royal guards. He told exaggerated stories about how he had heard they never even blinked, how they stayed frozen like statues, and how nothing could make them react. A few of his classmates listened with interest, while others ignored him and focused on their own conversations. Liam didn't mind, he enjoyed talking, even if not everyone paid attention. At one point, their teacher, Mrs. Carter, walked down the bus aisle and reminded everyone that the royal guards were trained professionals who deserved respect. She explained that they were not there for entertainment, but because they played an important role. She said that students should behave politely and not disturb the guards. Liam nodded, but he still smiled, as if he knew something others didn't. Mrs. Carter noticed the expression on his face, but she chose not to say anything more. She hoped Liam would behave well once they arrived. When the bus reached London, the students felt a wave of excitement. Tall buildings, busy streets, and historic landmarks surrounded them. Many took photos right away. Liam stood near the bus door, eager to step out. The city felt alive, full of energy, and he wanted to be part of it. As they walked toward Buckingham Palace, Liam moved ahead of the group, looking around with wide eyes. The palace was even more impressive in person than Liam had imagined. Its grand structure, decorated gates, and long history made most students pause in admiration. Many stood silently for a moment, taking in the sight. Liam admired it too, but in his usual way by trying to turn the moment into a performance. He pointed at the palace as if he had discovered it himself, and told everyone it looked even bigger than in pictures. Their tour guide, a kind man named Mr. Thompson, gathered the students together and explained the importance of the royal guards. He talked about their uniforms, their responsibilities, and the tradition they represented. The students listened carefully, but Liam's eyes kept drifting toward the guards standing near the palace entrance. They looked focused, calm, and completely still. Mr. Thompson repeated a rule the students had already heard. Please remember, these guards are not here for entertainment. They are working. You can take pictures, but you must not disturb them. Most students nodded seriously. Liam nodded too, but he whispered to the boy next to him, I bet they won't react no matter what. His friend frowned and told him it wasn't a good idea to test that theory. But Liam only shrugged. As the group moved closer to the palace, Liam noticed how many tourists were already there. Some took photos carefully from a distance, while others stayed quiet and observed respectfully. Liam felt something stir inside him. Not nervousness, but curiosity mixed with mischief. He liked moments where he could do something unexpected. It made him feel bold, like the star of his own story. But he didn't want to get into real trouble, so he told himself he would only bother the guard a little, just enough for a laugh. Several classmates stayed close to Liam, partly because they wanted to keep an eye on him, and partly because they had a feeling something interesting, though not necessarily good, might happen. They whispered to him to behave, and they reminded him of all the warnings the teachers had given. Liam smiled again, and promised he would only look. The closer they got, the more real everything felt. The royal guard stood completely still, his uniform neat and bright, his posture straight and strong. His expression didn't change, not even when noisy tourists walked past. Liam stared at him, fascinated. He had seen statues before, but this was different. The guard looked alive, yet unmoving, like a living sculpture. For a moment, something inside Liam softened. He felt a strange mix of respect and curiosity. But then he remembered his reputation, the stories he told, and the expectations he believed others had of him. He told himself he needed to do something memorable. After all, he thought, it was just a harmless moment. Nothing bad would happen. Before taking a step forward, he looked over his shoulder to see if anyone was watching. Some classmates were, but they looked more worried than entertained. This made him hesitate again, but only for a second. Liam thought that if he turned back now, they might think he was scared. And if there was anything Liam disliked, it was looking afraid. He took one slow step toward the guard, then another. He tried to act casual, pretending he was just another tourist getting a closer look. But inside, his thoughts were racing. Should he say something? Make a joke? Wave his hand near the guard's face just to see if there would be a reaction? He wasn't sure yet, but he walked closer anyway, letting his curiosity lead him. Behind him, his classmates exchanged nervous glances. A few whispered for him to stop. One girl quietly told a teacher that Liam was getting too close. Mrs. Carter looked alarmed and immediately began walking toward him, but the crowd made it difficult for her to reach him quickly. Liam didn't notice any of this. He was too focused on the guard. Standing just a few feet away, he felt a strange excitement building inside him. The guard remained still, calm, and completely focused on his duty. Liam's heart beat a little faster. He was now close enough to see every detail of the guard's uniform. And even though part of him wanted to step back, another part, the part that loved attention, was ready to do something that would make everyone remember this moment. He took a deep breath, and without thinking of what might follow, he leaned in just a little closer, prepared to test the limits of a moment he did not fully understand. Liam stood only a few steps away from the royal guard, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. His heart beat a little faster. Not because he planned anything harmful, but because the moment felt bigger than he had expected. He had talked a lot on the bus about doing something dramatic, but now that he was here, the situation felt real. The guard looked calm, focused, and completely professional. And there was something about that stillness that made Liam pause. He could hear the soft chatter of tourists, the clicking sound of cameras, and the distant voice of their tour guide explaining something to the students who were still with the group. But all of that seemed far away. As Liam stared at the guard's expressionless face, he realized that the guard wasn't just standing there for show. He was doing his job, and he was doing it with serious dedication. Liam shifted his weight from one foot to the other, unsure about what to do next. He didn't want to cause trouble, not real trouble, but he also didn't want to go back to the group without doing something memorable. He liked being seen as bold, but now that he was so close to the guard, he felt a little unsure. Not scared, just thoughtful. Behind him, his classmates watched with growing concern. Some whispered quietly, afraid that Liam was about to do something unwise. Others stood frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. One of his friends, Ethan, called out softly, "Liam, come back. Don't do anything silly." But Liam pretended not to hear. He wasn't trying to ignore his friend. He simply didn't want to break the moment. He raised his hand slowly, not to touch the guard, but just to wave, as if testing whether the guard would blink or shift even slightly. The guard didn't. He remained perfectly still, his eyes focused straight ahead, his posture steady and strong. This surprised Liam. He had expected at least some kind of reaction, even a tiny movement. Instead, the guard acted as though Liam wasn't even there. That made Liam more curious. How could someone stay that still and calm with so many people around them? Liam stepped a little closer but kept a respectful distance. He leaned forward slightly, studying the details of the guard's uniform, the tall bearskin hat, the polished buttons, the bright red coat. Everything looked so well kept, so professional. For a moment, Liam felt impressed. He hadn't expected to feel admiration, but he did. It made him rethink his earlier jokes about trying to get the guard to react. Still, the old habit of showing off tugged at him gently. He told himself he didn't need to do anything wrong or unkind. Maybe he could just make people laugh in a harmless way. That would be enough. So he cleared his throat loudly, hoping someone else in the group would find it funny. A few tourists glanced at him with puzzled expressions, but the guard remained still as ever. Not satisfied, Liam lifted his arm and pretended to salute dramatically, making an exaggerated face as if he were in a movie. His classmates whispered nervously, some giggled softly, unsure whether they should encourage him or ask him to stop. He didn't mean any disrespect, but he didn't realize his playful act could be seen that way. As Liam prepared to make another silly gesture, something harmless, like pretending to march, he suddenly heard a gentle voice behind him. "Excuse me, young man." He turned quickly and found a palace steward standing a few feet away. The steward wore a neat uniform and carried a friendly expression. He didn't look upset, just attentive. Liam's heart jumped slightly, not out of fear, but because he hadn't expected anyone official to speak to him. "Yes?" Liam asked, trying to sound casual. The steward smiled kindly. "I know you're excited, and it's wonderful that you're enjoying your visit. But please remember to give the guard enough space. He's working, and we ask that visitors keep a respectful distance. You're welcome to observe or take photos, but nothing more, all right?" Liam blinked. He wasn't in trouble, he could tell that from the steward's gentle tone, but he did feel a little embarrassed. He hadn't done anything wrong yet, but he realized how easily it could have looked improper. His classmates watched from behind, waiting to see how he would respond. "Oh, okay," Liam said quietly. "I didn't mean to bother him." "I understand," the steward replied warmly. "You're not the first person to be curious. Many visitors are. Just remember, everyone appreciates a bit of space." Liam nodded. "I will." The steward gave him an encouraging nod before returning to his post. Liam stood still for a moment, thinking about the interaction. It wasn't dramatic. Nothing surprising had happened. And yet Liam felt different. The steward's calm reminder made him realize something important. Being respectful didn't make him look weak. It didn't make him boring. It simply made him considerate. He took a slow step back, giving the guard more room. As he did, he caught sight of Mrs. Carter pushing her way through the crowd. Her face showed worry mixed with relief when she saw him stepping back instead of forward. "Liam," she said with a gentle but firm tone when she reached him, "we talked about this earlier. The guards are here for an important role. I'm glad you didn't cross the line. But please, stay with the group now." Liam expected a scolding, but her voice wasn't harsh, just concerned. That made him feel even more thoughtful. He nodded, feeling a little shy. "I'm sorry. I was just curious." "I know," Mrs. Carter said kindly. "Curiosity is fine. Respect is better." Liam managed a small smile. "I get it now." They walked back toward the group together. His classmates looked at him with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Some expected him to brag about the moment. But he didn't. For the first time, Liam wasn't thinking about impressing anyone. He was thinking about what the steward had said. He was thinking about how calm and dedicated the guard had looked. And he was thinking about how easily he could have made a mistake without meaning to. As the group continued the tour, Liam stayed closer to his classmates. Not because he was scared, but because he felt a new sense of responsibility. He still talked, still joked, but now he was more aware of how his actions could affect others. Later, as they walked through the palace gardens, Ethan nudged him gently. "You okay?" he asked. Liam nodded. "Yeah. I just didn't realize how serious it all was. I thought it was just for fun." Ethan smiled. "Well, at least you didn't do anything silly." "That's good." Liam laughed softly. "Yeah, I guess acting cool doesn't mean doing weird stuff near guards." "You figured that out today," Ethan said with a grin. Liam chuckled again. "Yeah, I did." For the rest of the day, Liam behaved differently, not boring, not silent, just more balanced. He still enjoyed himself. He still made people laugh. But he didn't try to push any limits. He felt proud of himself in a new way, a quiet way that didn't require attention or applause. Little did he know, the biggest lessons of the trip were still ahead. Liam walked with his classmates through the palace grounds, but his mind kept drifting back to the guard he had stood near just a short time ago. The experience had left him thinking more deeply than he expected. He wasn't used to moments that made him reflect on himself, and it felt unusual, like a quiet voice inside him was reminding him to be more thoughtful. Even though he had stepped back without causing any real trouble, the moment still echoed in his thoughts. He wondered why he had felt such a strong urge to impress people, even when it meant stepping close to someone who was clearly focused on an important job. He hadn't meant any harm, but he now understood how easily curiosity could turn into a mistake. As the group moved along the walkway lined with tall trees and well-kept gardens, Liam listened to the guide's explanations with more interest. Mr. Thompson talked about the history of the palace, the traditions, and the responsibilities of the people who worked there. Liam found himself paying attention, not just pretending to. The calmness of the garden and the elegance of the palace made him feel peaceful. It also made him realize how much effort went into maintaining everything, from the garden pathways to the uniforms of the guards. The group stopped near a fountain where the water glistened under the afternoon sun. Mrs. Carter allowed the students a 10-minute break to sit, drink water, and take photos. Liam sat on the edge of the fountain, watching the water move gently. His classmates gathered in small groups, chatting and laughing, while he sat quietly for a moment, enjoying the calm. Ethan soon walked over to him. "You're really quiet today," he said, sitting beside him. Liam smiled slightly. "I'm just thinking." "About earlier?" Ethan asked carefully. Liam nodded. "Yeah." He wasn't embarrassed to admit it. Not now. "I didn't realize how serious that job was. I was just messing around." "But it could have been taken the wrong way." Ethan nudged him gently. "Well, nothing bad happened. And you didn't do anything wrong. That steward guy didn't even sound upset." "That's the thing," Liam said thoughtfully. He was calm, like he knew how to handle people without making them feel bad. Ethan shrugged. "Maybe that's part of their training." "Maybe," Liam agreed softly. When the break ended, the guide led them toward a different area of the palace, where another group of guards stood. This time, there were ropes placed a little farther out, giving visitors clearer boundaries. Liam noticed that the group naturally followed those boundaries without being asked. They were all aware of how important it was to be respectful. Liam stayed behind the rope like everyone else, and he felt no urge to cross it. He looked at the guards with new eyes, appreciating the steadiness of their posture and the dignity of their presence. While the group took photos from a safe distance, an older tourist nearby began telling her grandchildren stories about how disciplined the guards were. Liam listened quietly, fascinated by the details. The woman explained how the guards trained for hours each day, how their uniforms were carefully maintained, and how they represented more than just tradition. They represented commitment and respect. Hearing someone speak about the guards with such admiration made Liam feel even more grateful that he hadn't done anything troublesome earlier. He imagined how disappointed he would feel if he had ruined someone else's visit by being careless. As the group continued walking, something unexpected happened. They reached a small open space where they were told they might see a short, routine shift change. It wasn't the grand one tourists often filmed, but a smaller version used throughout the day. The students stood behind the rope as instructed, and the sound of footsteps soon filled the area. 2 guards approached from one side, walking in perfect rhythm. Every step was steady and coordinated, The other two guards stepped forward to meet them. The entire exchange was silent, smooth, and graceful. Liam watched with genuine interest. It felt like watching a well-practiced dance, not dramatic, but disciplined and precise. The students whispered among themselves, impressed by the coordination. Liam found himself smiling. This was the closest he had ever come to seeing such careful teamwork. It made him appreciate the guards even more. After the shift change ended and the new guards took their places, the group moved on. Liam walked a little slower, still thinking about what he had seen. There was something about the quiet professionalism of the guards that touched him in a way he hadn't expected. It reminded him that not everything needed noise or attention to be meaningful. When they gathered near the palace gates again, the guide began wrapping up the tour. He encouraged students to take their final photos before preparing to leave. Liam stood with Ethan and a few others, watching the crowd of visitors. Many families were laughing softly, taking pictures, or simply enjoying the day. Some children were pointing excitedly at the guards, while their parents gently reminded them to stay behind the ropes. A little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve and asked, "Why don't the guards move?" His mother smiled and said, "Because they're very focused. It's part of their job. They practice a lot so they can stay calm and steady." The boy nodded as if this explanation was magical. Liam listened and smiled. He felt a warm sense of respect for the guards that he hadn't felt earlier. Mrs. Carter approached Liam with a small smile. "You seem thoughtful today," she said kindly. Liam nodded. "I'm just realizing things. Good things. I hope?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Good things." He wasn't used to saying things like that. But this time, it felt right. Mrs. Carter nodded. "Sometimes travel teaches us more than books can. I'm glad you're learning something meaningful." "Also," Liam smiled. "Me too." As they prepared to leave the palace grounds, something surprising happened, but this time, it wasn't trouble or mischief. It was something gentle. One of the guards, during a quiet moment, made the slightest move barely noticeable to the average visitor, but enough for Liam to catch. The guard adjusted his posture subtly, a tiny shift that showed he was still human beneath the uniform and discipline. Liam felt a peaceful sense of connection. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt important. He realized that being still didn't mean being emotionless. Being disciplined didn't mean being distant. The guard had a job to do, and he did it with calm strength. And strangely, Liam felt inspired by that. As the students walked back toward the bus, Liam found himself thinking about how he might bring some of that calmness into his own life. He didn't want to be known only as the kid who acted loud or tried to show off. He wanted to be someone who could stay steady, someone who didn't always need attention to feel confident. He glanced back at the palace one last time. The guards stood tall and calm, just as before. Their presence felt like a reminder, a peaceful reminder of everything Liam had learned that day. He didn't know exactly how he would change or what he would do differently, but he knew one thing for sure. He didn't need to impress anyone by crossing limits or acting silly. There were better ways to feel confident, and better ways to be remembered. With a quiet breath, he walked toward the bus, ready for whatever the rest of the trip would teach him. The sun had moved lower in the sky by the time the students reached their bus again, its warm light spreading gently across the palace grounds. The group was cheerful and buzzing with excitement. Everyone was talking about the places they had seen and the pictures they had taken. But Liam was quieter, still carrying the calmness he had felt near the guards. It wasn't the same kind of silence that came from boredom. This was thoughtful, steady, and almost peaceful. As the bus started moving, the teacher announced that they were headed to a nearby cultural center where they would learn more about British traditions. The students clapped, excited for what was next. Liam leaned against the window, watching the palace grow smaller in the distance. A small smile rested on his face as he thought about everything he had seen. The bus drove through the busy streets of London. People from all over the world walked in every direction. Some talking, some laughing, some taking photos. Liam observed them quietly. He noticed how many different cultures, languages, and personalities were all sharing the same city. It made him realize that the world was much bigger than he often imagined. Ethan, noticing Liam had been thoughtful for a long time, poked him gently. "You awake?" he asked teasingly. Liam chuckled. "Yeah, just thinking again." "You've been thinking all day," Ethan said with a smile. "Is your brain tired yet?" Liam laughed softly. "Not yet." The teacher, Mrs. Carter, overheard their conversation and turned around. "Thinking is a good sign," she said warmly to Liam. "It means your mind is growing." Liam offered a shy smile. Compliments always made him feel a bit embarrassed, but in a good way. "I'm just learning things I didn't notice before." "That's what travel is for," Mrs. Carter said, returning to her seat. A few minutes later, the bus reached the cultural center. The building was grand but welcoming, with tall windows and colorful banners showing different traditions from around the world. The group followed their guide inside, where they were greeted with brochures and a short introduction. The first room they entered was filled with displays about uniforms from different professions: police officers, firefighters, nurses, and soldiers from various countries. Liam immediately felt drawn to the section showing the Royal Guard uniform. Seeing it displayed up close made him appreciate it even more. The bearskin hat, the bright red coat, the polished buttons, each detail showed care, discipline, and tradition. He read a description beside the uniform that explained how much effort went into preparing it, how carefully it had to be cleaned and stored. It described how wearing the uniform meant representing centuries of history, respect, and responsibility. Liam stood there for a long moment, absorbing every word. Ethan walked up beside him. "You really like that uniform now, don't you?" he asked. Liam nodded. "I didn't know it meant so much. I used to think they just stood still. But there's so much more." Ethan smiled. "I think you're seeing things differently today." "Yeah," Liam admitted. "I feel like I understand things better." The next part of the exhibit showed videos of the guards during different special events. The students watched quietly as the guards marched in perfect rhythm, their movements strong and synchronized. Liam felt that same admiration he had felt earlier. It was like the more he learned, the more respect he felt. The guide led the group into another room with interactive displays. One station allowed visitors to practice standing still like a guard. A bright sign above it read, "Try to stay still, can you last 30 seconds?" The students rushed toward it, laughing. One by one, they tried to stand without moving while a timer counted down on a screen. Most of them lasted only 10 seconds before laughing, scratching their noses, or shifting their weight. The machine would loudly buzz whenever someone moved, causing everyone to laugh even harder. When it was Liam's turn, the group grew quiet, curious to see how he would do. Liam wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply wanted to see if he could do it. He took a deep breath, stood up straight, and focused on the screen. The timer started. 30 seconds felt longer than he expected. His legs felt fine, but his mind kept trying to distract him. He heard whispers, footsteps, and the laughter of other students. Someone dropped a brochure nearby. But Liam stayed focused. His eyes remained steady, and he kept reminding himself to stay calm. When the timer reached 0, the machine made a cheerful chime. The group clapped and cheered, surprised that Liam had done so well. Ethan clapped the loudest. "Look at you," he said proudly. "Maybe you should be a guard someday." Liam laughed. "I don't think I'm that good, but it was fun." Mrs. Carter smiled at him. "You showed wonderful concentration," she said. "That's an important skill." Liam felt proud, not in a loud, showy way, but in a warm, quiet way. It felt different from the usual attention he used to chase. This kind of attention came from genuine effort, and it felt more meaningful. In the next section of the center, the guide talked about respect for culture, respect for people who serve the community, and respect for traditions that hold a nation together. Liam listened carefully. Every word reminded him of his earlier moment near the guard, and how easily curiosity could turn into carelessness if he wasn't careful. As the guide spoke, Liam imagined how he might explain his experience to someone back home. He imagined telling them not just about the palace or the guards, but about what he had learned. That respect didn't require fear, only understanding. After the museum visit, The students were given time to explore a small gift shop. Liam walked around quietly, looking at keychains, postcards, and small souvenirs. When he reached a shelf filled with tiny toy Royal Guard figures, he paused. They were only a few inches tall, but made with great detail. He picked one up and studied it. He wasn't thinking about showing it off or bragging. He simply liked the idea of taking home a reminder of everything he had learned. After a moment, he decided to buy it. When he rejoined the group, Ethan noticed the small box in his hand. "A little guard figure," Liam said, opening the box just enough for Ethan to see. "That's cool," Ethan said. "Are you getting it because of earlier?" Liam nodded. "Yeah. It reminds me of what I learned today." Ethan smiled. "I like this new you. You're more calm." Liam laughed softly. "I feel more calm." When they returned to the bus, Liam placed the small figure carefully into his backpack. The entire day had been filled with learning, understanding, and small moments that changed the way he looked at things. He realized that the world didn't always need big actions or loud behavior. Sometimes it just needed someone to pay attention, to understand, and to respect what was in front of them. As the bus drove back toward their hotel, Liam leaned his head against the seat and felt lighter than he had in a long time. The day had not been about showing off or trying to impress people. It had been about discovering something meaningful inside himself, something calm, respectful, and steady. And he knew this was just the beginning. The final morning of the school trip arrived with soft sunlight leaking through the hotel curtains. Liam woke up earlier than usual, not because anyone told him to, but because he felt refreshed and ready for the day. Something inside him had changed during the visit to the palace and the cultural center. It wasn't dramatic, but it was gentle and steady, like he had discovered a calmer version of himself that he didn't know was there before. He sat up in his bed, opened his backpack, and took out the small toy Royal Guard figure he had bought the day before. He held it in his hand for a moment, smiling quietly. It reminded him not just of the guard he had stood near, but also of everything he had learned: the discipline, the peaceful focus, the importance of respect. He placed the toy back carefully, feeling grateful for the memory. When he went downstairs, most of the students were already having breakfast. Some were excitedly planning how many souvenirs they could buy before the flight, while others talked about the photos they would show their families. Liam grabbed some toast and fruit, then sat at a table with Ethan and two other classmates. "Ready for the last day?" Ethan asked, with a grin. Liam nodded. "Yeah. I'm kind of sad it's ending." "Me too," Ethan said. "It was more fun than I expected." One of the girls at the table smiled. "It was fun and peaceful. No chaos. No silly trouble." She winked at Liam playfully. Liam laughed softly. "Yeah. I guess I didn't cause any trouble this time." Ethan chuckled. "Shocking, honestly." Liam shook his head in amusement. He didn't mind their teasing. He knew they meant it in a friendly way. And it felt nice to be recognized for positive behavior rather than mischief. After breakfast, the teachers gathered the students in the lobby and prepared them for the day's plan. They were going to visit a quiet park near the River Thames, have lunch outdoors, and then head to the airport. It was meant to be a relaxing end to the trip. When the group arrived at the park, the air felt fresh and cool. Birds hopped along the grass, and small boats moved gently across the water. Families picnicked under tall trees. The calmness of the place seemed to settle into Liam's heart. The students spread out on the grass in small groups. Some played games, others took selfies, and a few simply lay down to enjoy the sky. Liam and Ethan sat under the shade of a tree, talking about the trip. "Do you feel like this trip changed you?" Ethan asked suddenly. Liam looked down at the grass, thoughtful. "Yeah," he admitted. "I didn't expect it. But it did." "In what way?" Ethan pressed gently. Liam took a long breath, thinking. "I guess. I used to think being loud made me interesting. Like I had to do something big to get attention. But when I stood near that guard and saw how calm and focused he was, it made me wonder why I needed to act that way." Ethan listened quietly. "And then," Liam continued, "the steward talked to me kindly. He didn't yell. He didn't make me feel bad. He just reminded me to be respectful, and that made me realize I could change without feeling ashamed. Ethan nodded. I noticed. You've been different, in a good way. Liam smiled. I want to keep being this way. More steady, more thoughtful. A warm breeze moved through the trees, making the leaves whisper softly. Liam felt peaceful, like he was finally understanding something important about himself. Soon, the teachers called everyone for lunch. Sandwiches, fruits, and juice boxes were passed around. Liam enjoyed the simple meal while listening to the birds chirping around them. After lunch, Mrs. Carter approached Liam with a gentle smile. Can I talk to you for a moment? She asked. Liam nodded and walked with her toward a quiet bench near the water. I've been observing you these past few days, she said kindly, and I want to tell you how proud I am of your growth. Liam looked surprised. Really? Of course, she replied warmly. You showed responsibility, self-control, and respect. Those qualities matter more than loudness or jokes. They show maturity. Liam felt a warm glow inside his chest. Thank you. I didn't think you'd notice. Mrs. Carter chuckled. Teachers notice a lot more than students think. Liam laughed softly. I hope, she continued, that when you go back home, you'll remember how you felt here. You learned something valuable. Don't forget it. I won't, Liam promised. She gave him an encouraging nod and went back to supervise the students. Liam sat on the bench for a few extra minutes, letting her words sink in. He felt proud, in a quiet, meaningful way that he had never felt before. He knew he still had a lot to learn, but he was willing to try. When it was time to leave the park, the students gathered near the bus. Liam took one last look at the peaceful river and smiled to himself. He felt ready to go home not because he was tired of the trip, but because he wanted to continue this new, calmer version of himself. At the airport, the students stayed close to their teachers, checked their bags, and waited near the boarding gate. Liam pulled out the small Royal Guard figure from his backpack and held it in his hand for a moment. The details looked even more meaningful now. Ethan noticed and asked, Still like that toy? Yeah, Liam said. It reminds me of what I learned. Well, Ethan said playfully, if you ever forget to be calm, just look at the toy. Liam laughed. I will. During the flight home, Liam sat by the window, watching the clouds drift below. He thought about how different he felt compared to the beginning of the trip. Back then, he had been excited to show off, to be loud, to make people laugh even if it meant crossing lines. But now, he felt more settled, more respectful, more at peace. He didn't feel the need to be the center of attention. Instead, he felt proud of his new understanding. When the plane landed and the group walked into the airport, Liam saw his parents waiting. His mother waved excitedly, and his father smiled proudly. Liam ran toward them with his backpack bouncing on his shoulders. How was the trip? His mother asked warmly. Liam smiled. It was amazing. I learned a lot. His father raised an eyebrow. Learned? That sounds serious. Liam nodded. It was. I think I grew up a little. Both parents exchanged pleased glances. On the drive home, Liam told them about the palace, the guards, the cultural center, and the lessons he learned about respect and calmness. His parents listened with admiration, grateful that their son had learned something meaningful. When they reached home, Liam went to his room and carefully placed the small Royal Guard figure on his desk. It stood tall and steady, reminding him of the moment that had changed his perspective. He sat on his bed, looked around his room, and felt ready for whatever came next. He didn't know exactly how he would act differently at school, or how long the quiet confidence would last. But he knew one thing clearly. He didn't need to prove anything through loudness or mischief. He only needed to stay true to the lessons he learned: respect, calmness, and understanding. And with that thought, Liam smiled. He felt lighter. He felt stronger. He felt ready to begin a new chapter, one that didn't need attention to matter.